Hello and welcome, heroes, to the Crit Academy. I am your host, Justin. That's
Cool.
you.
I'm your guest, Remley.
I'm your co-host, Austin.
All right. Now your other co-host, Ian.
And we hope to inspire you with creative content that you can bring with you on your next adventure.
Yes, we got a really exciting show for you guys today. I want to thank you for joining us today here at Crit Academy Studios, where everything's made up and your roles don't matter.
Yep, that's right. Your roles are like a fantasy world without magic.
Yeah, I've played
You
those.
gotta need that with cases.
Yeah, I feel like it just never is the same. Before
I'm
we
like thinking, is there a
No.
fantasy world that I can think of that doesn't have magic? And I'm really struggling here.
at least some level.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, I
Yeah.
do want to take a moment and say that our newest upcoming Kickstarter, Vigilantes and Villains, playtest streams are bi-weekly on Fridays. This is our upcoming Kickstarter project. If this is something you're interested in, do you like superheroes, you love 5e, and you want to see a mix and match of the two, please head on over to critacademy.com/vigilantes and villains and sign up to get notified when we go live and any additional information coming out with our Kickstarter. I'm really excited for it. We've been having a blast with it, so blast.
It's been
magic.
very crazy, nonstop.
You guys literally ended up
Yep.
pretty much letting buildings blow up. So yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways,
we leveled a whole warehouse.
Yeah,
up.
we that's super dang.
yeah, it was great. But before we get into all the cool stuff, I want to thank our special, amazing guest here, Remley Farr. Thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. It's nice to be in front of this camera.
It's good. We're glad to have you. Before we get into talking about magical adventures, building magical adventures, we like to start off every episode on a high note, and we do that by giving away fat loots.
Yeah, and we have a new thing here for a change. I'm kind of surprised. I'm so used to saying, "Hey, look at the
I know.
Arcana set of Loresmith." But we have something new. But it is Kirkpa, the squirrel folk from Steve Fiddler and Nathaniel Rowe. I'm gonna go with that.
Sounds good.
Presented here by C. Fiddler and Nathaniel Rowe is the Kirkpa lineage, a race of reclusive yet merry forest dwellers, complete with lineage and cultural features, 2 new subclasses for the rogue and barbarian,
They're cool.
and all the tools needed to fit the small Kirkpa into your game. And our winner today is 6 odd 1 7.
Congratulations.
I am amused picturing a barbarian squirrel person, just saying.
Yeah,
I'm very excited
it's
about
very
that
cool.
idea. But don't worry if you didn't win. Have no fear. Just head over to critacademy.com and subscribe for your chance to win. It's
Yes.
just that easy.
It-
And it's totally free.
It really is. And I
Yeah.
want to give a huge shout out to all the content creators, including Remley Farr and Jeff Stevens and Nathaniel and all the people. I sent out a call to action that I wanted to kind of spotlight all the content creators, and they were happy to provide complimentary copies for our winners. So thank you guys very much. And the
Yeah.
hope is that we'll be changing it up every single week. Let's see how everything goes. But now on to the meat and potatoes of the episode, our main topic, magical adventure building with our guest, Remley Farr. Now, obviously, I know who Remley Farr is, and several of you have probably heard of some of his products. We've given them away, most certainly on this show. He's worked very closely with our boy, Jeff Stevens. Which, by the way, Jeff Stevens says that Remley Farr is awesome, and I 100% concur. That's why he writes my adventures for me now.
I concur as well.
Right. You may have heard of Happy Jack's Funhouse or the Madhouse of Tasha's Kiss, along with a bunch of other stuff. Now I know I've talked you up a little bit, but Remley, can you kind of give them a little bit of information, tell them about yourself a little bit?
Yeah, basic gist of me is I double majored in English and writing back in college. Right now I'm teaching GED courses, so that's kind of what I'm doing for, the day job. As far as the hobby side of me, I started D&D with 3.5 edition, like a lot of people out there have. Then I kind of, when 4th edition came out, I hopped over to Pathfinder. I was part of that crew. But then after doing Pathfinder for a while, I found that it was actually easier for me to get people into Pathfinder because it wasn't called Dungeons and Dragons. Because sometimes, especially back then, if you said Dungeons and Dragons, it was people kind of already had a preconceived notion.
Yeah,
Now it's a little
absolutely.
more mainstream. But
Mhm.
then, like right when 5e came out, some friends of mine introduced me to it and kind of, to a degree, poached me from my Pathfinder group to go play 5e. So
Funny.
that's kind of how I got into it. Ever since then, I tried doing a little things for Pathfinder, but I think 5e has just been what has called to me as far as where is my energy for the fantasy-based sword and sorcery, Ren Fair style going. So
Right. What do
I've
you
been
do in the world of Dungeons and Dragons and RPGs in general?
so right now I am DMing a campaign with some friends of mine. Some of them are childhood friends. Some of them are those from other nerdy adventures that we've all been on before. And we're playing Tomb of Annihilation. We've been doing it for about a year, meaning about every Friday because hey, it's pandemic. But for D&D and 5th edition, I do mostly adventure writing, module creation, and lately mostly commission based. I have done a lot of it on my own. And recently, I've been a bit more, not just on the writing aspect, but cartography, layout, artwork. I've tried to do a little bit of, hey, let's see what happens if I do it all on my own.
Right.
And
Mhm.
which it is nice to hire somebody to take care of that for me, but
I can attest to that.
yeah, but also that costs money. Granted,
Yes,
I'm now
yes.
making I'm making more money though now in my day job. It's gone up
Congratulations.
to to a full-time position, which is a whole lot more of a relief. So I can maybe now delegate some of those parts of adventure creating to other people if the time
Right.
comes.
Mhm.
Awesome.
All right.
Now we're really excited to get into this.
Hey, what
Okay.
would you say your most memorable D&D moment is?
So this is kind of my go-to when it comes to what happens when players just ruin the Dungeon Master's day. At the old hobby shop back in 3.5, it was just you show up on D&D night. They have certain, like this DM is doing level 1 adventures, this one's doing 3, 5, 7, whatever.
Mhm.
This was back in the day of prestige classes, where prestige classes were if you got your base class to a certain point, you could then start putting points into essentially what subclasses are now, so to
Right,
say,
right.
but a little more specific. There was a class called the Eye of Grunch, which you had to be an orc and you
Oh,
pretty much
yeah.
had to be a barbarian. And then you became the ultra mega murder barbarian. And part of it too is you had to have one of your eyes popped out because that's what Eyes of Grunch looked like. So me and my buddies decided, hey, let's all just make Eyes of Grumps. Let's show up to this like just little one-shot night with these 3 big dumb orc barbarian murder monsters that like they make regular barbarians look like, you know, the rogue or something. So it's the 3 of us and then some guy we didn't know just playing like a halfling rogue. So we're going through the dungeon, and every single room is just kick the door down, go in, murder everything in there. The rogue is trying to sneak attack. He's trying to be like slick, but man, we decided that we were all pirates, so we all had newspaper hats on. This guy DMing it was just like, you know, there's all these puzzle things, but we just decided no, let's just have smash. Like we don't have just a dedicated tank
Crush
DPS.
everything.
Everybody's a tank DPS. Just. And then the little human behind us who we kept screaming at to hurry up. So
Oh my
That
goodness.
sounds
that's
awesome.
that is exactly what you can run into as a DM. So people can show up doing that.
That sounds awesome.
Wow, they are wild. I'm looking them
Yes.
up right now, and I'm just looking at like, they make barbarians look like kittens.
Yeah. And we only 3 of them on this guy. And we're, of course, like best friends who go into high school together. So we just have these like annoying in jokes, and we're just like 20-year-old POSs just running around being those guys at the shop. But hey, we got our XP. We looted our treasure.
I love it. It's so.
The skill
Man.
is not existent.
Yeah. They are insane.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you have any moment where you feel like you failed as a player or a DM?
Yeah, probably one of the first times that I ran an old school D&D game, which is a lot more lethal, but then you as the DM are supposed to telegraph things a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
And at the same time, it's not based on skill checks. Like, it's very hard to pass certain skill checks, but it's less I check for traps and more I peek under the bed, or I take the spear tip and poke it around like the lock to see if, like, that's what it wants people to do in the game. And I think I failed to get that point across to them and made it where they almost had to take someone who is a dedicated skill jockey who just, okay, let's roll the die, roll the die, roll the die. We can't roll it but more every 10 minutes. And it was just this really terrible way of, like, oh man, this looks like you have to have a specialist class member to just roll dice to check your traps. It was
Right.
because I didn't. Most of OSR is more so based on you don't roll the die to complete the task. You say what it is you're doing specifically. I take the 10-foot pole and I poke all the little places in front of me to look for this. And you can have people just do all of that. Like, I check
Right.
for the peephole. It's less I roll investigation and more so I do this, and then if that requires a roll, the DM tells you if that needs a roll to complete. Otherwise, maybe they just do it. Don't roll investigation to
Right.
find the gold under the table. Just look under the table. There it is. And give it to the players. They look there.
I love it.
Mhm.
So now kind of on to why we brought you on. For those of you who don't know, Remley has been writing a bunch of our Patreon one-shots, and they've been awesome. They literally have me giggling my ass off when I first pick them up. I think they are fun, and you have a very interesting approach to writing when it comes to designing and building your adventures. And I think it was awesome if you are willing to share your secret with the world here. So, would you tell us a little bit about your methods that you use when writing your D&D adventures?
Yeah. It kind of gets its roots